So we'll get started in about 1 minute, but I want to show you that URL. That's where some of the information for this workshop are. That includes some of the matter that's printed already, plus some other things there as well. So, and we're being streamed right now, so people can be flies on the wall out in the cyberspace to hear the keynotes. Okay, I think we're going to get started. My name is Walter Knittel, and I'll be your MC for today. And hi, and we'll be talking about a strategy for IoT at the national level. That's what we want to do, and that's why you're gathered here to help us out. But before we continue, just want to do some preliminaries. You know where the food is. Washrooms are down the hall from there, and I believe that way it's also the fire escape as well, the back steps. We're in the COVID-19 era, so we please ask you to put on your masks. That's our requirement. You'll bottle at all times, except when you're eating. So if you have a coffee in front of you, then I guess that's okay, just a sip. Also, you will be very busy today, but if you do get a chance to tweet, those are our call signs at IoT Canada and the same hashtag. We are very fortunate to have a sponsor for this event. Thanks to BlackBerry, very generous in their donation to help us cover some of the costs. And Charles Egan is here for BlackBerry if you want to talk to him. We also have a couple of other corporate sponsors. 12 Dot. Food will be talking later today, so you can raise your hand. Food. He'll be talking later today in his keynote, and also BLG. Is it Donna here? I don't see her. Okay, so why are we here? Well, IoT is a big space. It has multiple dimensions, the architecture dimensions, the bits and pieces, the solution dimension, where all the value is, and a bunch of other disciplines that combine and make this whole thing happen. And one would be excused if you thought that AI is only in the analytics part, but it's not. AI is everywhere. It's all through the network, managing the network, controlling it, redundancy, basically everywhere. So in a nutshell, IoT and AI are very tightly combined together. So that's where the acronym comes from. AI plus IoT gives you AIoT. AIoT can create a lot of economic value. The question is, how do we leverage it? How do we leverage it for national growth? And for that, we need a strategy. And to do a strategy, you need three components. One is, what are the opportunities? What are the challenges against those opportunities? And then what are the solutions? And those are the three questions that you'll be tackling today. So this is why we're here. The Roundtable mission is to leverage all of your combined wisdom to help us identify what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, and some of the solutions that we should be looking towards in addressing in a national strategy. You have the agenda in front of you. Very quickly, we'll have a set of keynotes in the first hour to set the scene. Workshop number 1, break, workshop number 2, and we'll get into the workshop later, the details of it. Then we'll have at the end an open debate just like this, where we'll look at the workshop results. By the way, 3 of the groups here will be going into other rooms so that there's not a lot of chatter in here, so people can work, and I'll identify those when the time comes. Then we're going to have a showcase by Barak. Is he in here? Oh, there you are. Okay. Of what they're doing here at the center. And we'll have a keynote with Jenna Suds during the lunch. It'll be a working lunch, which will include a keynote, consensus summary by Frank. Where's Frank? Okay, he's out there. And then a formal rant. And then at the end, you can have a actual tour of the lab that showing what they're doing here as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Guy Levesque. He'll give you a nice Canada North, University of Ottawa welcome.
Thanks, Walter. Do I need a microphone?
No.
Okay, so thanks everybody. Welcome, bienvenue tout le monde to. Oops. Donc, ça me fait le grand plaisir de vous souhaiter la bienvenue au campus de l'Université d'Ottawa, au campus satellite à Canada. Welcome everybody to U Ottawa's home in the heart of Canada's largest technology park. What a great time to see so many people, familiar faces, new faces. Welcome here. This is as much your home as it is our home. This is exactly why we have a space here to bring people together to think about and reflect on the impact, the potential, the possibilities of technology. Limited only by your imagination, your ambition, your inspiration, your vision, your quickness, your wisdom, and your agility. I had a 42 slide presentation that Walter said I only had 3 minutes, so I threw that out the window. But what an exciting time to be here in this period, in this era of convergence. I think AIoT calls it consolidation. I wish you great deliberations, deep reflections and thoughts on opportunities and challenges around building a vision and a strategy for AIoT. You will be hearing from Professor Burak Kantarsi in a few hours and touring the Smart Connected Vehicle Innovation Center today. It's a perfect depiction of this convergence and consolidation of cyber-physical systems bringing together wireless, 5G, machine learning, AI, cybersecurity, connected autonomous vehicles, all into an integrated platform that is driven by technology leaders, but used by society and end users and clients. So I know that in your deliberations, you'll be focused on technology and the axes that Walter showed you, but never forget that people are the ones who ultimately decide how we use, where we use, how much we use, and in what way we use the technology platforms that we develop. And that strategy around AIoT is going to be critical. Internet of Things is going to transform our university campuses. We have one here in Canada North, our main campus downtown. We also have a health and medicine campus in the East End and a health sciences campus just off the Rideau River and the 417. So I wish you great deliberations, and I look forward to hearing the results and outcomes of your discussions today, and we'll be following AIoT's work with great interest. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Guy. So next up is our first keynote by Michel Langer. He is the CEO of AIoT Canada, and he'll talk about the global challenges of AIoT and AI and IoT and what our organization does. Go ahead. Yes.
You did provide a hashtag for today. Can you just provide some clarity in terms of what is shareable and what is not to be shared?
You can share whatever you want.
I'm going to assume that there's some material that we want to talk about perhaps later, but workshops that may
it's okay. You can share that. No problem. Yeah. Go ahead.
Perfect. So hi, everybody. Thank you very much for being with us. And also, this is being broadcast nationwide. So thank you very much for the people who got early to listen to those presentations. So mine is about global challenges and opportunity for the industry. And the metaphor I'll be using in this presentation is similar to SimCity, but actually the idea is to see how we can bring it to a digital nation and trying to build a community. In this metaphor, what we have to remember is there are some hidden part and there's our visible part, but at the end of the day, if we want the community and the city to work together, we actually have to be all interconnected. And this is what I'll be stressing in this presentation. So what you will hear is really about the need for innovation agenda, and I'll explain you why in the digital sector, an overview of the critical issue that the industry is facing, and also fact and case sector, that all of this is going to help you out in your deliberation today. So back in 2014, I had the pleasure to do a 35 benchmarking exercise in terms of global innovation. And at that point in 2014, you can see the leading country, and Canada was ranked number 8 at that time. Throughout the year, we slid to position number 18. And then last year, we're still at ranking number 16. And I want your attention on spot number 1 and 2, because we'll compare some of the fundamentals for that. So when you take a country like Sweden that has ranked every year number 2, okay, globally, and Canada 16, you have to understand when you do further analysis, and there are about 80 different metrics in terms of global innovation index. So, but the metrics are sub-indexed by input and output. Input is actually how much innovation you create, and output is really about how you use this innovation. And what you can see is that we are really definitely doing a poor job because right now we are ranking at 23. And the reason why is actually because we're not efficient in commercializing and pushing our idea to the market. Okay, and this is the big challenge, and this is why we need collectively, like the smart city, SimCity, to actually see how we stop perhaps to look at vertical and silo and see how we have a systemic vision. Okay. And actually, when you compare the population, okay, Canada is about 30 million and Sweden is about 10 million. So it has nothing to do in terms of population. That has all to do in what they call market sophistication, okay, and also government policy. And I will explain some of the choices that are made by the government of Canada. And one of those is that compared to Sweden, they have selected some key sector and decided actually to heavily invest, and they're not trying to please as many sector, and they are trying to look at which one that are critical enablers. So everybody knows this, that about 20 years ago, Exxon, the retail like Walmart and so on, and GM were the top leading firm globally. Now it's all shifted, and we have an NVIDIA that is in artificial intelligence, and Tesla is actually now the leading company in the electric automotive sector and other technology. So what we need to understand is that the knowledge economy is really very much driven by the digital economy. So when it's nice to look at the past, let's look at the trend. And when you look at the Gartner 4-quadrant model, what you'll find out is in the yellow, those are the ready mature technology right now. And as you go out to the outside, then it's gonna take a little bit more time. But the big trend with this is that all those technology are all intertwined, all interconnected to actually digital economy and capturing data, and also trying to use those data smartly. So one of the key challenge for the industry, and you'll hear about that often today, is we get calls every day. Do you know somebody who could help me out with this or this and this? So the industry here sometimes will have partner outside of Canada. Why? Because they don't even know that they're the best partners across the street. So who does what? Depending on the different market and depending on the technology stack. And this is why you will hear about the idea that we need to have a better mappings if we want the industry to actually win this global competition. So some of the fact, we're almost doing as about half of the research, and some people may say we should double or triple compared to any other nation, but let's be honest. Let's go back to the first slide on the global ranking. We don't need more research. We just need to be more efficient to market it. Okay, so that's the key message I want to tell you. It's very important because a lot of time we plead the case to do more, but we just need to do better and work together. So what is a good and bright side all of this is that when you compare in North America, there are right now 7 cities that brings together talents and cluster in such a way that it's not far-fetched to think that we have the required talent and the hubs to be able to really build a very strong high-tech sector economy, especially in the IoT. So, but the thing with this is how do we connect those cluster? And some people in the innovation agenda will tell you, you know what, if you work with the top 20 cities in Canada, okay, that's all you need to really care. Okay, so that's one angle you could look. Instead of trying to do all kind of initiative, we could build on 20 cities across Canada and be a worldwide nation. But just to tell you, we have an edge compared to our neighbors. So we're paying the people really well, okay? And this is an advantage in some way that we are in a talent war, and other sector will compete with your talent. So on this graphic, this gives you the last decade how the market growth in terms of market size. And what you have to understand is that all sectors have actually multiplied by 3 in terms of market size. But if you look at the green one, which is the consumer, and you cannot really see it because it's hidden by the participant. But if you look at this curve here, you'll notice that it's the consumer electronic. And this is very good news, because if the consumer wants more product, that means that other company will want to actually invest in those technologies. So we are on a path to growth, okay? And that path is actually, as you can see, really taking up steeper. And pending what literature you read, some people will say that in terms of a connected object, within the next 8 years, this will be multiplied by 4. Just one second. By 2030. So, but the good news is you guys are going to be making a lot of money. Okay. So, if you go with growth potential, McKinsey is claiming that those are the key sector, okay, and you can see that transportation and also smart cities, the industry 4.0 will be dominant. So there are other opportunity in terms of emergency response and time. If you are in that sector, okay, you can plead the case that this is an added value. So the people, the municipality will want to perhaps purchase your technology because they understand that we can save life, okay? In the autonomous car, and this is, and thank you very much, Barack, to invite us, also Guy and Veronica to be here, because this is going to be a key sector. But at the end of the day, there will be integration with technology. And here we're talking about electronic, microelectronic, we're talking also with quantum and so on. So the idea is instead of trying to look at every vertical and every layer, we have to have a systemic view. So right now, the ratio, 1 job out of 7 is really related to the digital economy. We are moving to a state where probably it will be 1 out of 5. So one of the key thing is to also look not just at the innovation agenda, but also the talent gap agenda. So one of the key research I did with another organization had to do with industry maturity level. 4 years ago, with a Quebec organization, we realized actually that, and the conference board has similar data as well, that 3 out of 4 company does not have the proper maturity technology level. Readiness. So this is a big challenge because you may get a great technology to sell, but guess what? There will be no consumer to buy it because they're not ready. And the idea is to work together to see how we can build that maturity level together. So one of the key arguments is to make the people understand that they're part of a value chain. And by using machine learning, for instance, they can actually get data, get decision on real time, and that may actually change their entire business model. And those are some of the favorite metric that we can use and convince industry to say, you know what, this actually will probably enable your production chain. It may actually give you more data to work that you never really understood that you really had. So for the people in the industry, a lot of time they don't even know where to start, but showing them that kind of matrix may be a way to convince the company to actually start a project. So this is for me the key chart today that I would like you to really memorize, because this is when we're going to finish at the end of the day, you'll see those 8 pillars, the systemic problem that we have from right to left and so on. It has to be encompassed within a systemic vision. And this is what we don't really have. I'm telling you, this is the gap that we don't really have. Government, academia, industry, we don't work together in trying to solve pieces of the puzzle. So sometimes we will hear a report about the talent gap. Sometimes we don't commercialize. A lot of people are not at ease with how the data are being used, and there's reluctance in adoption. Okay, so this is the part where I'll speed up, but there are some key specific, and Yvan later will explain you the AI reality, but we compete for the talents. The company sometimes think they should be doing AI, but they should only do BI and their social acceptance. So for the people who want to understand how to build that trust, well, the Harvard Business Review came up with this digital chart, and you can see where Canada, we are leading, but we have a lot of work to do in terms of social acceptance. So this is my concluding remark. At the end of the day, the reason why we rank 28 in terms of output is because we run this like a low-tech innovation agenda. And we have to step up and to actually work together and see how we can competitive. And my plea to you is that we are entered in digital economy. So we can be the locomotive of the nation to actually generate more wealth in this country. But we have to show the path. And if we don't do it as industry, who else will do it? So I will leave it with this. If you are interested to find out what we work with, and Edona, our chair of our government relations committee, will be there. And I will also invite you to connect with Connect AIoT Canada.ca, which is our new portal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. So our next keynote is Fouad Khan. He'll be talking about various regulations and cybersecurity issues that are surrounding IoT, but no doubt as well AI. Go ahead.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm just going to make my way across here. Thank you. Thank you. So good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Fouad Khan. I run a consulting firm here in town. The big thing, other than what we do is we've been very fortunate since I've created the company is we've been working with a lot of small, medium businesses, and not just in Canada, but globally. And so what that has resulted in is we help a lot of the standards groups in Canada, and we lead couple groups, and I lead, like, for example, 27400, which is the IoT standard for under SE 27, also 30149, which is IoT trustworthiness. So what we've been doing is taking the lessons learned from working with a lot of small businesses and correlating that into standards that small and medium businesses can use to actually help them, raise their game, right? Because big companies have all this money, they have research, they have all this stuff, and they have expertise. Small companies don't have that, so they have a disadvantage. So what can we do to help them bring that game up? And I think that plays into what Michelle was talking about earlier, is how do we kind of raise our level of competitiveness in the marketplace for IoT? So that's what I'm hoping to kind of share with you today. So if you look at the marketplace right now, we have a fragmentation problem, right? And this is just a small sample of what's going on. Because if you're a small player in the market, you get into the market, you know what you want to do, you've got this great idea, you want to bring it to market, and you're like, all of a sudden you start to hit these walls. So walls because you want to start to do distribution with a bigger company. All of a sudden they're like, whoa, are you certified for this? Are you certified for that? And then what happens is you're like, oh, we didn't think about that. You start to look at the costs, and then you start to figure out, okay, what is it going to take to play in those markets? This gives you a small sampling of some of the stuff that's going on out there that we're seeing that the smaller companies run into when they try to get into certain markets, and not just in Canada, right? Because when you're a small company, Canada's a small market. So you want to get into those larger markets. In order to facilitate that, you're going to have to go global. So the one area that I do want to highlight is this whole IoT device regulation market, because to me, it's so interesting because I've been able to, because I'm in the standards market, I know most of these. I've actually, with the Japanese government, I've been asked to review their stuff before it actually went to market. So I got to actually put in insight that I said, these things are not going to fly. You will never get a small company to do this. It's just too challenging. Also worked with the UK government as well. The gentleman who runs that group, he and I were actually at a keynote at CES just before COVID. And so we were talking about, what does this mean for the marketplace? Because we wanted to create a baseline that small companies could achieve. And they've been doing that. They've created a whole certification program around that. Singapore has really pushed the envelope, which is really interesting because what they did was they made it mandatory. And so, for example, everyone's got a home router, right? So all the manufacturers that have home wireless routers had to get to level 1 certification. And they had to do that last year. And if they didn't, they had to remove it from the home or they were liable. We would never do that in this country. There would be lawsuits like crazy. But they did that. On top of that, they've come up with a whole plan to roll things out for different levels depending on where you are in the market. And the reason why they did that was they realized, and like it comes to a national security thing, other countries were using their in-country devices to weaponize them. Potentially against them, but then potentially against other countries, nation states. So their mechanism to do that was to basically, that's how they were going to address it. Japan similarly did a similar thing in the sense that they actually can scan your devices, and they do. And they've actually turned internet connections off because of that. So if they scan your device, realize it's an IoT device that's not secure, they actually turn off your internet connection so that device can't get weaponized. Again, we would never do that here. But they're doing that there because they're looking to protect their industry and their national interests. And they know that some of these low-hanging fruit devices, however you want to refer to them as, can be attacked, can and will be attacked. We know this. So interesting kind of take, right? The EU is definitely also, they came up with their 303.645. And then with that, not only did they come up with the standard, which is a baseline, that baseline then has now turned into a certification. So they're looking to get products in the EU market meeting that same kind of requirement, again, to protect European interests, right? So they're not turned against the people, they're not turned against the government, the businesses, that kind of stuff. So you got this complexity. So we need to make it easier for small, medium businesses. So working with small, medium businesses, we really need to simplify it. So one of the first things that we try to teach these small companies is you always get the answer, we have a firewall. And so to them, security is a firewall or antivirus. So the first thing we try to tell them is that security is not technology, right? It's risk management. So because 95% of the firewalls we see out there, they're all misconfigured. And why is that? Because if you talk to one of the administrators or the system engineers, they're like, well, we couldn't get this working, so we just opened it up. And you're like, but that's kind of pointless. Like that defeats the whole purpose of the firewall. So same thing with antivirus. We're finding companies who forgot to renew their subscriptions, or they didn't update, they didn't get the alerts, like just all kinds of stuff, right? That's what opens up companies to a lot of the issues we see today. So where do we focus that? So if we look at where some of those previous regulations that I talked about and where the industry is going, we're seeing standards and regulations that are basically looking at two facets of an organization. One is the actual company, right? How do you run your business and secure your business? The other one is the products and solutions that you're creating, specifically as a vendor. So around the organization, it's that risk management thinking. How do you do that? And it doesn't have to be complex. And the problem is that I think there's a certain fear factor by executives. A lot in Canada, some in the US. The US is getting a little bit ahead of us, but you don't see this in Europe. You don't see it in Asia. Right? They embrace security. They don't understand it, but they're willing to learn. But I find there's a fear factor in this country that's been here since I started. And I've been doing security. I'm like a bit of an anomaly because I got into a security job out of school. And so back then, doing cyber and doing security was kind of almost strange, right? Unless you got into the military government. So, and I didn't. I came through corporate, but my first job out of school was a security job. And I remember just, working with executives, and this is in finance, that they didn't really understand it, but they were willing to learn. And I remember our first internet connection, this is like 95, I'm dating myself now. So we had like our first dial-up internet. And I remember our CTO, he was like, well, my kids were using my computer and they broke my computer because obviously his kids were new to the internet too. They wanted to use their dad's computer and they actually got a virus on the computer, right? Viruses existed back then. So for those of you that still remember those, like there was a virus called Monkey, was one of the first variants. And basically what it did was it overwrote what's called the master boot record. Just basically destroyed the master boot table. So your files just didn't know where they were, all that kind of stuff. So he got that on his computer. So it was like the first kind of foray of how we were getting computers attacked even back then. But all of that was, we had policies and procedures, but in this case, we didn't necessarily have the control, right? Because we didn't have antivirus back then. So if we had antivirus, like if we knew the risk of using that, which we didn't at the time, we could have put those controls in place. Talks about the organization piece. Products, it's around, understanding how your product's going to be attacked, because it is going to be attacked. And you have to make that realization from the time you conceive it. So as you're coming up with those crazy ideas, don't let that stop you from innovating, but think about how you're going to be attacked or potentially could be, right? And it's easier to say that than to do that because it's a mindset, right? After a career of me, because anytime I see a solution, someone will show me a solution and they're showing me all the usability stuff and things like that. I'm always thinking about how would I attack it? How am I getting into it, right? And that could be logically through the interfaces, or it could be physically. If I open that up, what's exposed? Because that's what we do, right? Do that in the lab all the time. So it's about those kind of thinking that will help you protect your products as you're bringing them to market. And this is what we get these small, medium businesses to think about, right? So I'm not going to go through all of these in depth, but so when we talk about things like a risk management framework, you're like, oh, wow, that's going to be really complex. Actually, it's not, right? You could write a one-page, policy on what you plan to do. That's it. It's one page, just saying, we're going to secure the data of our employees and our customers, and that's it. How you go about that is completely open to you because that's your procedures. It's a simple statement. Once you do that, then you determine how do you evaluate risk for those things you do. So like if you collect all your employee data, you're going to secure that, right? You don't want it exposed. So what did you put into place to protect it? Very similar to how you're going to collect your user data. We don't spend time looking at those things because data, you've probably heard the statement that, data is new gold, and it is. That's why sites are being attacked, because people want the data. The data and the identities is worth a huge amount of money on the market, the black market, so to speak. And so that's what we need to protect. When we think about costs, right? So this is something we're asked about. When I look at the small companies that we've been working with, and quite a few of them are quite successful now. They've grown. Like we've seen some of these companies grow from 5 people to over hundreds, right? Their valuations have gone through the roof. And I think about those times when we first met in boardrooms and we're just talking to them about their architecture and what they needed to do and saying, here's the stuff you need to think about now. Here's how you need to look at the principles for it. And as you're building it, here's what you need to put into place. And they've done that. And now because of that, they got their certifications. They can go through a pen test. They can go through an audit and pass because they put in those foundational pieces at the front end instead of just going, oh, wow, what do we do now? Now you've got to do these bolt-ons. You got to change your network architecture, you got to change your system architecture, and potentially your organization architecture in order to pass an audit. You don't want to be like that. This looks complex, but it's not. Because really, I just want to show you some of the concepts. A simple concept is, and I'm just using this standard here, but you can put any standard here, okay? So basically, you're going to take some kind of security standard for your development team. And it's going to drive how you're going to implement that through your product lifecycle, okay? And that, first of all, starts down here, which is the most critical piece of design and requirements. You have to understand it at this stage, because that is going to impact you, not just today, but down the road. And then all these other pieces, which are critical, and the reason why we put them here is for any kind of base certification in any regulatory market, these are the minimums that you will have to comply to at a minimum, okay? On the other side, we have what's called ISMS Lite. ISMS is just a fancy name for risk management framework. That's it. It stands for Information Security Management System. It's a term that NIST will use. It's a term that ISO will use. That's it. It's not any more than that. So it's just a fancy name. So in summary, there's fragmentation. We can't deal with the fragmentation. As a small business, what you're going to have to do is a certain amount of education. You're going to have to learn about how you play in different markets, and then how do those markets impact you, not just now, but in the future, like where are you going to? That's going to be key for you. Think about your approach, but by two different vehicles. One is that organizational view, and the other is that product view. Okay. Work towards maturity. We talked about maturity. Michelle was talking about the maturity. It's so key. You have to show those organizations that you're going to work with. And we're working with some companies who are small in the city, which is, you know, I think is so awesome, because we're working with these large, like Japanese and American and European providers selling their componentry. They're not the big name. You're not probably going to see them. They're going to be hit under a big brand, but it's Canadian technology built in this town or Montreal or Vancouver or Toronto. And how did they get there? Is because they were able to show their maturity. So those are the key aspects that we need to work towards and creating that roadmap. So as you're thinking about the roadmap of just your features, think about the roadmap of how you integrate security into your products and solutions. Okay, thank you very much. And if you want to get in touch with us, those were our contact details. Thank you again.
Thank you, folks. So cybersecurity and IoT are unfortunately linked. And any survey you ever have on IoT about the concerns and challenges, guess what's on top? Cybersecurity, right? So it's a very important topic. Thanks, folks. Okay, next up is Yvonne Gauthier from NRC, and we'll be talking about data analytics and AI.
Wonderful. Right. Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, everybody. Merci, Michel, pour l'invitation. My name is Yvan Gauthier. I lead the AI Accelerator at the NRC. For those of you who are not familiar with the National Research Council, Très noir, yes. Okay, wonderful. So for those of you who are not familiar with the National Research Council, our mandate is threefold. We advance scientific and technical knowledge. So that's our core research mandate. That's what people know us for, the most for. But we also deliver solutions to government, including policy solutions, and we also support business innovations, including to our IRAP program, Industrial Research Assistant Program, which is 75 years old this year. We do that in a number of areas and a number of locations in Canada, in terms of manufacturing, materials, biotechnology, name it. A lot of people with a lot of talent and expertise. And, all these areas have, to some degree, a digital nexus. And we, the division I'm part of is the Digital Technology Division. Our role is to make digital technology smarter and more intuitive, but also exploring the use of data to solve real problems. We really want to solve real problems. We have over 100 people in the Digital Technology Division. We have over 30 years of experience in AI. But more importantly, and I'll get to that in a minute, we have a very wide network of world-class experts that are plugged in with top universities and industry as well. And we do that in different ways through different vehicles. The first approach we take is to have collaboration centers. So that's when we embed our researchers with academia, with industry, with government organizations to advance in some areas of importance to Canada, like IoT and AI. And the perfect example of that is our latest collaboration center in Waterloo, exactly focused on that AI, IoT, cybersecurity. They work on a lot of things. I don't know all of them, but for example, battery-free sensors, touch sensors that can be IoT devices, blockchain that cannot be broken by quantum computers, all kinds of fascinating stuff. We also have another center focused on cybersecurity in Fredericton, much more focused on smart buildings, smart cities, and that sort of thing. We support the innovation superclusters, so you're probably familiar with them. Our key program there in digital technology is really our AI for logistics program. So we support all the pillars of the supercluster. So that includes transportation, for example, with a lot of issues related to autonomous vehicles. We work on the infrastructure side, controlling the goods. So that includes, like, say, drone technology, automated monitoring, and that sort of things. And also, there's also a big cybersecurity aspect because, as was previously mentioned, cybersecurity is key to all of this. And also, we have challenge programs. Challenge programs, they're really focused on high risk, high reward type of problems that would really deliver transformative technologies. Examples of that are high throughput and secure network challenge that aims to deliver technologies that will ultimately enable network providers to really serve well all the Canadians, including in rural communities, in remote communities, with high bandwidth that they need. Aging in place, it doesn't sound like it, but there's a lot of element related to IoT and AI there. You think about autonomous vehicles for elderly people. You think about connected devices at home. You think about, again, cybersecurity and privacy and ensuring that what they have in their home is safe for them. And finally, quantum sensors. So how do we build revolutionary IoT devices that will use quantum technology to be a lot more precise, a lot more sensitive, have longer range, and so on. So these are the kind of things that are maybe a bit more blue sky, more advanced, but that we do toward our challenge programs. Now I'm going to give you a few examples of how AI is really a force multiplier for IoT. And I know it was mentioned before, AI is everywhere with IoT, and I know I'm preaching to converted, but there are a few things that we need to keep in mind, because AI is really has the power to really augment what IoT can do in many ways that we don't often think about. For example, AI can make sense of a lot of data, and it can take IoT sensors as a group and make sense of what they're telling you. It can also leverage all the historical data that you have from your IoT sensors. One example of project that we've been working on for the last year or so is with the Canadian Navy. You have to know that each Canadian frigate has over 2,000 sensors monitoring the health of equipment on board the ship. And they take a reading every half a second or so. It was mainly used for, raising alerts about equipment and whatnot. The temperature of this engine is too high and whatnot. It was not really exploited to its full extent until recently. What we're doing now is we're looking at the current behavior of a ship compared to the normal behavior of a ship based on years of data collected, the entire fleet of ships. And based on that, we are able to build models that allow us to detect anomalies, but not just detecting anomaly, but also identifying the root causes of these anomalies. So you take all these sensors together and you'll be able to say, okay, here's something that's wrong. Here's the direct cause of that potential anomaly, but here's, all the chain of events and the root cause of the anomaly. And if that can help the ship maintenance folks to improve their process, it's going to be huge, because readiness is everything for the Navy. And a ship that is ashore being repaired is not ready to go. So really big thing. And it can also, enable predictive maintenance, which is also very, very big. AI can process data locally. Edge analytics, you're familiar with that, but it reduces the challenge in terms of connectivity, latency, energy consumption. But more importantly, when you're doing edge analytics, it means that you don't have to collect all this sensor data into one cloud, centralize everything, and potentially create a security risk. So it's a lot more secure, it's a lot more privacy preserving in many ways. And it's just a lot more efficient. So this is an example of a sensor monitoring water quality. It just independently process the data, analyze it, and raise an alert when it's needed. It doesn't have to send data every half a second to a central computer. And this is probably my favorite one. People don't realize that with AI, you can teach your old equipment new tricks. So gas meters, for example, changing all the gas meters in Canada would be prohibitively expensive, but you can use AI to read the meters. You have a Raspberry Pi cameras. If you have annotated images, like we produced at NRC, you can do all these readings automatically. And it just removes a lot of manual tasks that is unnecessary and actually very error prone. When you have a human doing it, the machine can probably do it better than the human. So we actually have an open source image data set based on that project. And this could be scaled to all kinds of other type of old equipment that just simply cannot be replaced easily. Now, the issue is getting into AI is harder than it looks. And maybe some of your organizations are well advanced in AI and they're fine. But in general, as Michelle mentioned, the maturity of organizations is not as always at the level they need to really leverage the power of machine learning and whatnot. And a lot of companies and government organizations have made the mistake of picking the most complex problem or the most complex techniques like deep learning and launch into that, and they failed, and the leadership lost confidence and didn't get the momentum. Starting small is really what we recommend to our partners, because it gives you success. It helps you to define your requirements in terms of data, IT, talent, governance, security, and whatnot. And it's just more likely to succeed. So that's one thing we do very often with our partners. I mentioned all the challenge programs and collaboration vehicles for research. We do also offer services at NRC. For example, our data analytics centers, where if you come with real data and a real problem, not just a pure research problem, we will help you solve it. We'll bring the right experts to look at your data and see how you can build a concrete solution that you'll be able to deploy in your organization. And we do that with private sector organizations, but also with public sector organizations. And that's my baby, the AI accelerator. A lot of government organizations now also want to transform digitally. They're facing the same issues, but they are also, well, I've seen the same issues. They do have particular issues in the government. And actually, we start to see a divergence between what the private side needs and what the public sector organizations needs, especially in terms of responsible AI and ethical AI, because when we're dealing with the data of Canadians, we have to be extra careful. So we have the accelerator now to meet the needs of the government organizations and get them where they want to be. So in short, our AIoT journey is really just beginning. And I'm saying that looking at what has happened in the field of AI just in the last month. If you've seen what OpenAI has released with DALL-E 2, it's amazing. It's very impressive. Google last month has released a language model that is doing concept reasoning. It understands jokes. It does all kinds of very fascinating things. And you combine that with all the data that IoT will give us in the next few years. It's just hard to imagine where we're going to be in 10 years, but we're just at the beginning, and it's going to be a fascinating journey. So on that note, again, thank you, and yeah, looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Vaughn. I'm really glad to see that Canada and NRC in particular is deep into AI and machine learning, and with a combination of IoT. So we're going to start our workshops. Nilofer will explain to you what it's all about, how to do it, and she'll also tell you which groups here will be going off to another room. We're trying to keep 3 groups in here so there's not a lot of chatters so people can actually work. And then the other 3 groups will go off to conference rooms to do their work. And when you're finished, we'll usher you back here for summaries.
All right, can you guys hear me? Awesome. So as Walter said, my name is Nilofer Erdable. I'm with Spring 2 Innovation. You guys can feel free to call me Nil. It's a little bit easier. And so my company, Spring 2 Innovation, specializes in helping people understand their problems better. And the way that we do that is by understanding the people that are involved in the problem. So earlier, we heard that commercialization was a challenge, and understanding the people that are going to be purchasing products and services is a key part of making products and services more successful in market. I started out my career in the defense industry and then moved on to network performance management. And I kept participating in projects and initiatives that were super high tech. They were super sound, but they never made it in market. Either we lost funding for it early on or it tanked in the market. And it was only in the early 2000s, actually a couple buildings down from here, where I was part of an innovation center with 2 large organizations, that we actually started bringing in our clients and working with them to understand what they want, what they're willing to pay for, and what is actually going to be happening in their industries in the future. And so it got me really interested in helping other organizations do that. So we do that for private and public sector organizations, helping organizations understand the people that are involved in their spaces so that we can better articulate the problems we want them to solve. So today you guys are here with your brain power to help us create a vision and a strategy for AIoT Canada. And as part of that, we've created 2 different workshops for you guys to participate in. And as Walter mentioned, you guys are going to be going out into breakout rooms so that you can work in smaller groups. And the intention is just to get your thoughts and ideas so that we can help build that strategy together afterwards. And with that, you guys will notice some placemats. Oh, and I'll put it over here. So we have 2 workshops. Workshop 1 has 2 components to it with the pink stickies. You guys feel free to write in it on your own if you want. With your tables, you guys are assigned particular verticals to focus in on. And so you'll notice your table names in front of you. Those in the inspired are going to be working on the smart buildings sector. Those in visionary, agro. Those in WISE will be transport, ingenious, smart buildings, fast, agro, and smart transport. I'll say it again at the end as we're heading out. So as you're looking at your templates, feel free to write in it on your own. Workshop 1 is going to be an hour, and then we'll take about a 15-20-minute break, and you guys can talk amongst yourselves, and then we'll get into workshop number 2. For workshop number 1, which is the first one we're going to do, you guys will get about 40 minutes to work together in a group, and then we'll pull you back in here to actually share with the rest of the teams what you've come up with. And I'll run through the questions in 1 second. When you come back here, you'll have about 2 minutes to present. And then we'll do the 20-minute break, and then we'll work on workshop number 2. So as you see in front of your placemats there, the first question that you have is, what opportunities do you see in the particular vertical that you've been assigned to where AIoT product innovation or adoption can significantly contribute to the growth of the Canadian economy? And so those could be whether they're new transformational opportunities, existing opportunities, where Canada currently doesn't play, or where Canada may currently lack sufficient strength. And you guys also have some information besides you too to help guide it, sort of hints, things to think about. And so things to think about might be what are the applications in the AI or IoT space or together? Who could use it? Identify users and stakeholders, benefits to users, benefits to providers of AIoT innovation, and benefits to Canada. And so for smart buildings, connected transportation, and smart agriculture, there's some ideas that you can take into consideration. And so that's the first part of workshop 1. So maybe spend about 15-20 minutes on that. The second part, and the second question on your placemat with a pink sticky underneath it, is what are the challenges in addressing and realizing opportunities from question 1? So take some time considering all the challenges, and then maybe select the top 3. So for all of this, as you're thinking through as a group, what are your top 3 opportunities and what are your top 3 challenges? And again, for question number 2, there's some hints, but consider both AIoT solution provider and AIoT adopter perspectives as well. So someone's going to come by and guide tables fast and I think ingenious and smart to your various rooms. You have flip chart material in front of you as well as markers. Take them with you and work on them in the rooms. And when you come back, bring back the flip chart material with you. You might want to take pictures of the flip chart material as well, so that as you're working on question 2, you have that information available to you. So far, any questions?
We have a placemat per person.
Yeah, we have 1 placemat per person. And we have some extras if you guys are missing any. So feel free to write it on your own. Maybe take a minute or 2 to get your thoughts together for each of the questions. So the first one is around what are opportunities for workshop 1, and the second one is what are challenges. And so for each of those areas, select your top 3, and then select 1 person in the group when you come back to present to the rest of the group. Any questions? And Walter and I will be floating around in the different areas. So if you have questions at that time, feel free to ask away too.